Welcome back, everybody, to the Hardwood Convos podcast here on the 515 Podcast Network. I'm Brock Bierman alongside, as always, with Dawson Livingston and Hunter Rose. And as you can tell by the title of this episode, we are going to be looking at Bleacher Report's recent article where I think it was their staff that put together this ranking of their top 100 players of all time. And if I remember right, they basically averaged out all the rankings. They did list the highest ranked, the highest ranking ever. Man, I am so good at these intros recently. The highest ranking each player who is in the top 100 received, and the lowest ranking as well. So as we get into this, you'll see that some people had certain players ranked really high, and then you'll also see some players that were ranked really low compared to where they averaged out on the list. So that will be fun to kind of look into, discuss. I will say, full disclosure, we're probably not going to talk a lot about your favorite NBA players from the 60s, 70s, and maybe even a little bit of the early 80s, just because, you know, it's just a different generation of basketball. But, you know, once you incorporate the three-point line, then we can start talking some basketball. But Dawson Livingston, Hunter Rose, how are we doing, boys? I know it's kind of weird. You know, we're in that low period of the off season, so there's not much going on NBA wise, but you know, you two are both avid baseball fans, so I know Hunter right now is absolutely loving his Milwaukee Brewers, right? As they are one of the hottest teams in the MLB, probably one of the favorites right now, heading into the back half of the season. Dawson's Royals, on the other hand, they're trying.
They're trucking along.
They'll get there.
Boys, how you doing?
Not too bad. You mentioned it. Royals they're doing their thing. They've kind of turned a corner. They won their last 3 series now. They're playing the Braves right now, and they picked up a walk-off win earlier today. But no, other than that, doing good. We're getting closer to football season, so that's always fun with college and pro. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm doing good so far.
Yeah, we doing all right over here. Recruit the other day got the series win over the terrible organization in Chicago, so that was fun. Beat the traitor, so that's always a positive. But yeah, other than that, you know, we're definitely, you know, we kind of even talked about it the other week. Definitely in that low point of free agency. Biggest news probably in the last week. I don't know. Probably, honestly, it's probably with the Kuminga stuff today. And that still is like everybody kind of already knew that was happening. So that wasn't even that much of news, to be honest. So he's
just continuing to hold out. And then I think I saw today that he mentioned he wanted to play for the Kings.
I think that's one of the teams. Yeah. I think he mentioned them.
Suns.
Yep. The Suns.
Which they ain't going to have money to afford what he wants.
No. Yeah, but yeah, other than that, doing fine. So
I did, I guess, kind of have some baseball in my week the last weekend. I was in a baseball stadium, not for a baseball game though. Never thought I would go to Wrigley Field for the first time for a concert, not a baseball game, but that works. No complaints here. Especially because we left on Saturday. We drove down Friday night, stayed at a house that was in the suburbs of Chicago, so about an hour train ride in. We left at 8:30 in the morning to go to the city, and we didn't get back to that house until 2:15 a.m.
Yes, sir.
And your boy did not plan his meals properly because he ate lunch and then got to the stadium and was too hot to eat during the concert, and then got to the train station waiting for his train and was too hot to eat anything for dinner. So he had lunch and that was it. So standing in the heat, it was rough, I'm not gonna lie, but
you're prepping yourself for the state fair season that's coming up in a couple weeks.
There you go.
Are you see? I'm not a state fair guy. I hate the state fair. I'm not gonna lie. It is not my thing. Nothing screams Brock Bierman more than 90 plus degree weather, and that's not even including the heat index.
True.
$10 plus to get a freaking drink of any kind.
Oh, that's why you bring your own souvenir cup in.
You gotta buy the souvenir
cup. Here's what you do. You buy the souvenir lemonade cup, and that sets you for the entire
I've had the
week.
same cup since 2019. I bring it back every single year.
But also, you got thousands of freaking people around you. And if anyone that doesn't really know me, I don't like when I say I don't like people, I don't like people being in my personal space.
It means you hate everybody.
I hate everybody. That's why we do this all virtual. Can't stand these two people. That's the only reason we do this virtual. But the state fair is not for me whatsoever. I will say I think I'm gonna have to potentially work a day at the state fair.
Wow.
I'll keep you posted on how that goes.
Hopefully Brock's other employer is listening in and going, I know exactly who's going to be there every day now. That'd be great.
I know for sure it won't be every day. It's just I got to figure out things because I think I already had, because it's around the weekend of my birthday and I can't remember what my family has planned, but like usually we go somewhere for my brother and I can't remember which date it was. So that may affect everything, but can't really know when those dates are until person that's in Vegas comes over and like comes back and tells me what to do, because she's the one that schedules all that stuff. Or it's either me or her, and I'm not scheduling my own birthday dinner because that's kind of weird. Like, you guys are coming to worship me for a meal. But enough about me, I guess. Let's get into this Bleacher Report rankings. They, like I said a couple weeks ago, ranked the top 100 players of all time. So we're going to start at number 100. We're going to work our way down the list all the way to number 1. We're going to go in increments of 10. And as we go along, we'll mention some players that we think fit exactly where they're supposed to be. Maybe they could have been higher. Maybe they could have been lower. Or maybe there's someone that's not on this list that probably should have been in a spot compared to someone else. But before we get into it, not specifically talking about players on this list, but what did you guys think of this article and this rankings? Just early reactions to it.
I like when publishers put stuff out like this because it gets people like talking, and it's good talking points to kind of see where certain players like sit in the public's eye. And like, if you do these every few years, you could see what players' legacies have grown and gotten a lot more steam to get higher up in the rankings versus some players potentially slipping. So I always think it's good to post these, and some of these rankings we're going to talk about are pretty outlandish, but some of them are, I would say, are fairly accurate. I like that they average out the ranking where it's not just one person doing their 100 to 1. Then you get kind of a more uniform and more level playing field when it comes to ranking these players. But no, I always like these kind of exercises.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat. I definitely, it's fun when they kind of put them out because sometimes they get me riled up. And, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I think the one thing I always have to pull time of is like when I'm looking through like, I'm like the one, like this 100 to 91 that we're going to do, or 90 or however math works. Yep. Like I'm probably not going to have any pressing opinions about something. I do have one player actually that I think is snubbed that I'll compare later. But I think
I know who you're going to talk about.
You think
potentially?
Okay.
Potentially.
I think if I would have spent more time, there might be more, but there's like one guy in general, like when I was doing like some comparison stuff. But I think the three things that if someone were to be like, oh, like, well, if you think that, why don't you make your own top 100? I'm like, I'm not taking 5 hours to do this. But there are three things that like when I was going through this and thinking about, this episode that we're getting together, that I think are like the hardest things to like actually account for and to see like how people rank them. Number one is the importance of dynasties versus just like being on a really bad team, because like someone who never wins a title but averages 30 a game might be on here compared to someone who might average like, I don't know, like 15 a game but wins a bunch of titles, maybe during certain eras of the NBA. We'll get there. Number 2 then, kind of really going with that, is like recency bias. So like there's actually someone in this first 10 that I think we probably all would agree will end up being a much higher player, but I feel like is still difficult to like actually rank them somewhere because we haven't really seen their career kind of play out more. And at the same time, also seeing some other players that like, you know, have played well recently be probably really high up when in reality they haven't done much. And then the third thing is the overall like impact of the game of basketball as a whole and like other intangible things that aren't going to be written down, like overall influence, for example, because there's also another guy on here that I think is like a perfect example of this that you could rank a lot higher if you wanted to talk about overall impact of the game of basketball, but in terms of accomplishments is probably quite low, to be honest. So we'll get there though.
I mean, we'll get, when we get into this, I'll point this out, but there's already someone when we go to 100 to 91 ish, we will there'll already be someone that I feel like should be on this list just because. And it's interesting that Hunter mentioned recency bias, because this is proving that recency bias wasn't necessarily completely followed this entire time. So we'll start at number 100, Artis Gilmore, an ABA champion, MVP there as well. Played with the Chicago Bulls for the most part in his NBA career. Averaged a little over 18 points a game, 12 rebounds, 5 seasons in the ABA, 13 in the NBA. I mean, a lot of people know who he is if you watch a lot of basketball, but as people will tell early on in this rankings, it'll be a bunch of players that, didn't have a huge impact, but you may recognize a couple names. Number 99, Dave Bing, played 12 seasons in the NBA, averaged over 20 points a game, which a little over, so 20.3 points a game and 6 assists,
and was a scoring champ.
Was a scoring champ, yes. Which is funny because I'm not going to lie, I'm not familiar with this game. I'm not familiar with his game, but he did receive a ranking as high as 69. So that means that a lot of people know of him and his skill set. So that number 98 will be the first one of like the modern era, the current era that we're in. Klay Thompson, 4-time champ, 2-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Star, 1-time All-Defensive Team member, averaging 19 points a game, shooting 41% from 3, 12 seasons, most of those in Golden State recently with the Mavericks, highest ranking of 72 and lowest ranking of being unranked. So that's the first player of the modern era that you'll see. And then you'll get number 97. I'll just quickly rattle off the rest of these so we can get through this whole list before the hour is up. But Bernard King at 97, famous Knick legend, 22 points a game, 14 seasons in the NBA. Joe Dumars, everybody knows the Bad Boy Pistons at number 96. Joe Dumars was a key part of that 2-time back-to-back champs in Detroit. Was a finals MVP, by the way, for them. And will get placed at number 96. Number 95 is another player that not many people will know of. I think Dawson, before we recorded the show, pronounced his name the best. So I'm going to have Dawson pronounce his last name because I don't want to butcher it.
Wait, are you talking about Dave DeBusschere?
Is that how you
Knicks
pronounce
legend?
it for sure?
I have no idea. But
It'd either be debut share or like I don't know where the emphasis is.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'd be something like debut share, debut shear, or something like that.
His name is Mailman or Plumber.
Yes, but he was a part of the last Knicks championships. So yeah, that's one thing, which I guess would give him a big reason to be on this list. because not many Knicks players have won championships there. Then we get to Celtics legend Bill Sharman at 94, 11 seasons of the NBA, 4-time champ. And right under him is another Celtics legend at 93, Jason Tatum, who just recently is coming off of a good season that unfortunately ended in an Achilles tear. Number 92, Lenny Wilkins, who averaged a little over 16 points a game in a 15 season career, one-time assist champ. And then at 91, we got Chauncey Billups. So that is the first 10-ish guys that we have went through. What are your guys' thoughts on this list? I thought it was interesting because we will mention a couple players later on that are a part of a dynasty involving Klay Thompson. I think in terms of where certain players in that dynasty were ranked, Klay Thompson might be a little low in my personal opinions, but I can understand what happened last season could affect how people view him as an all-time player. Jason Tatum as well is someone that I feel like may have been a little low, but that's also a little biased to me because I personally would have taken Jason Tatum over Chauncey Billups, even though it's only 2 spots above. But you can make that argument that Chauncey Billups has that finals MVP, which takes him over Jason Tatum, obviously, when you're looking at accolades. So what were your thoughts on the first list of people?
I didn't really have an issue. I think Tatum should be higher, as much as we dog on him. When I say we, I mean me and Hunter. He's better than some of the guys that are ahead of him. So I don't really have an issue there. One guy that I thought would make the rankings that just didn't entirely. I would have thought.
Are you going to say Shea?
No. I was going to say Ben Wallace. The Ben Wallace disrespect, the little discourse on Ben Wallace has kind of gone under the radar. He's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. While he never averaged more than 10 points in a year, man was feared when you were going to the basket in those early 2000s Pistons. Help him win a title in 2004. Help him make one more finals against the Spurs, I believe.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because there will be a player later on in this rankings that plays a very similar game and had a very similar career to Ben Wallace that is pretty far up in the rankings when you look at it.
Yeah, but I don't know. That was kind of the one that like caught my eye. I don't know. Maybe I just view defense a little bit higher, and I know he's like a one-trick pony. He only plays defense for the Pistons. Never really scored much. Like I said, never averaged more than 10 points in a game. But did we really need to have? I'm not trying to throw shade at the older generation. But why can't we just swap him and Bill Sharman? Like, come on. They weren't dribbling with their left hand in the 50s. Like, we can't keep these players on this list. And
why did you have to go for the
Bill
Celtics
Sharman
player first?
Ranked as high as 51. I need your name. You need to be held accountable for these rankings. And then the Dumars one, him being ranked as high as 38. Dumars is a great player. 38 is high. You're getting to that
upper echelon.
Dwayne Wade, Charles
History.
Barkley. You're getting to those kind of players. I just don't know if Dumars is in that quality player of all time. But no. My main gripe is I just would have thought Ben Wallace would have made this list.
Yeah, I think Joe Dumars probably would have been someone that I would have ranked fairly high. I probably personally would have had him a little higher than where he was on this list. I will mention that, like I kind of hinted at it earlier. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is not on this list at all, which I don't know if either of you realize that, but if Jason Tatum is not ranked above Chauncey Billups because of the finals MVP is my assumption, that, in my opinion, means that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander should be ranked above Chauncey Billups because he has a finals MVP, NBA MVP, an NBA championship, and career-wise is averaging more points, and I mean more points by almost 10. And I think he's also averaging almost the same amount of assists as Chauncey Billups right now. So personally, like I'm not trying to be that recency bias guy, but like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had a season that like historically is going to be held up for years to come.
Let's give it a few seasons with him. He'll make this list in due time, but at least for me, I don't think it was that like atrocious to leave him off this list, if that makes sense. It just unless honestly, if I were to make these lists, there's a cutoff. Like year-wise, if you played before this year, you don't get to make the list anymore. Like when they did the NBA Top 75, 3 or 4 years ago, and they still had the guys from like the 50s and 60s on the original team, there's got to be like a rule where you get taken off at a certain point because we're going so far back. We can't compare those players to these players. If you were to take all those old guys out, by all means, Shea's definitely a top 100 player, but I don't think it's that like atrocious to leave him off the list right now.
Yeah. I guess I don't have any crazy opinions that differ super hard from you guys. I think honestly, I think the only one would probably be. I think I'm fine with leaving Tatum right here for now, as a very good role player in NBA history. He will be higher though. Don't get me wrong. He'll be higher up there for sure. I guess my player though that I'm gonna pull up two different. So one of these guys. So player A is not on the list. Player B is later on the list. Okay, and like should be there. Okay, there's like no argument about it. But we're gonna compare some stats and accolades here. Okay, so player A who's not on the list. Actually, no. I'm gonna change.
I was gonna say
we're gonna start with the other one. We're gonna start with.
Do we want to wait though until we get to that?
No.
Okay.
No, it needs to be discussed.
Because I think there's a reason why this guy's not on there, but still, I still think he should be personally. So player B, we're gonna call him player B just because it works in my own head. Is on the list, and in his career has averaged about 24 a game, about 4 rebounds, about 5.5 assists. Is a 9-time All-Star, a 1-time champion, and 3-time All-NBA, noting that none of them are first team. Only the second team he's only gotten once, and third team has been twice. Has won Rookie of the Year, and he's a pretty recent player, kind of recent, still plays. Has gotten clutch player nods, okay, if that even means anything, to be honest. But it's an accolade, so I threw it in there, okay? And I will note, has never received an MVP vote. So now, player A, who's not on the list, has averaged 19 points a game, so less. Has averaged 8 rebounds, though, about 2 assists, is a 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, was all on their All-Rookie team, didn't win Rookie of the Year, and was actually a top 10 MVP vote getter 3 different times, peaking at 7 and being as low as 10. And has also gotten nods being Defensive Player of the Year. Okay. So, like, comparably, like, there is one more talented player stat-wise. But overall, and when they were playing, player A has, like, numerous times where he's like, all right, this guy, like, is actually insanely good. And that player, I won't make us guess because there's, like, a jillion different basketballs. Yeah. That player, I was just compared Kyrie Irving as player B, who's on the list, very clearly should be.
Oh no.
Player A, don't say oh no. You respect it. It's LaMarcus Aldridge. We're forgetting about LaMarcus Aldridge. He's insanely talented. But like
you had
stats wise,
going down the Blake Griffin path. I don't know why. No. I heard those numbers. I'm like, man, is he really?
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think the thing because Blake Griffin won, I think Rookie of the Year. I think that would be like the only substantial difference probably. But, like, yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge, like, as he was playing, like, that dude, like, in San Antonio, I think was one of the times he got MVP votes. Other times being, obviously, when he was a longtime trailblazer. But, like, he's never won a title. Like, I'm not saying, you know, he's a GOAT by any means. But, like, I think it's just kind of weird that he's not on there. And I love LaMarcus Aldridge. 2K legend right there. He always torched me as a kid, all right? I love that guy, though. But I think it's kind of wild that he's like he should be in that top. Yeah, let's get some of these old guys out of here, please.
I'm telling there's got to be a cutoff year. Those guys could have their own list, but we got to do modern basketball.
I'll say let's call timeout on this because I think there are a couple players that I actually would agree that I would probably rank him above in the next couple of players that we're going to mention. So we'll call timeout on that. We'll go back to the list at number 30. Chris Webber, At not number 30, number 90, Chris
I
Webber.
skipped a bunch of people. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I was gonna say. Number 89, Earl Monroe. Number 88, Draymond Green. Number 87, Alonzo Mourning. Number 86, Tony Parker. Number 85, Sam Jones. Number 84, Adrian Dantley. Number 83, Jimmy Butler. At 82, we got Bob Lanier. And 81, Dikembe Mutombo, one of the best pure, just old school center guys that you've ever seen. I'm not going to lie. Like you mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge, like there are a couple players that I maybe would like, not necessarily above Tony Parker or Alonzo Mourning, but like pure talent and ability. Like I could see him being in that high 80s ranking. I mean,
the thing we'll never know is we'll never know what all like journalists or analysts had for the rankings.
yeah,
Because I guarantee there were some journalists out there that had LaMarcus in their top 100.
oh yeah.
There had to have been
Among
at least
other
a few.
players, yeah.
And if there
But we'll
wasn't,
never
then we
get
need
to
to
see
stop.
that list.
We need to stop.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
like Chris Webber is one of those interesting guys because he like hit the ground running in terms of his NBA career, and I felt like he like fell off quicker than other like LaMarcus Aldridge. I felt like even LaMarcus Aldridge, while he was kind of on his way down, he was still consistently good, at least from my recollection. He was still a key factor with the San Antonio Spurs towards the end of that. But Draymond Green, this is what I mentioned this earlier about Klay Thompson. I personally, maybe it's the Defensive Player of the Year awards. I personally think Klay Thompson should be ranked higher than Draymond Green. And maybe it's just because of those memorable moments that Klay Thompson has over Draymond Green. But I don't know. That's just my personal thing. It's kind of crazy that we are talking about someone being at 88 and his averages are 8.7 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, 5.6 assists per game. He does average a steal and a block, but like, I've seen a bunch of players average that in the NBA, but
Yeah, and especially
I
when
don't know.
Dawson like nods towards like Ben Wallace, that really makes you like rethink. Where it's like, oh, like I don't think I would go as far as to say like Golden State like wins and is as successful without Draymond Green. He's obviously an important part.
Yeah.
I don't want to disrespect the man, but at the same time, like if we're gonna say that,
he's
we
also a
need to
reason they
respect
lost.
we also need to respect like Ben Wallace, who was very, very, very much
Mhm.
an important part, especially within the series that they played. Like if they don't have Ben Wallace, they probably aren't winning. I'm not lying. Like
No, but what Ben Wallace did to Shaq in that final series when they dismantled that 04 Lakers team is unbelievable.
Ben Wallace is why I feel like Draymond Green was able to have an NBA career almost, because you can have that anchor on the defensive side of the ball, because Ben Wallace wasn't necessarily tall either.
Especially
he
since
was
we have
an
Dikembe
underside.
on here too. Like
Mhm.
Dikembe would be another guy. I don't like again. I think Dikembe probably top 100. Especially he's iconic too. Like
Oh, yeah.
there's no argument about that. Dude, everybody knows the finger wag. You don't people probably might not know where it comes from, but people know the finger wag. And so he definitely, but yeah, it's similar thing. So
Yeah.
Well, he was a key player. Wasn't he on that Nuggets team that was the first ever team to win as an 8 seed in the NBA playoffs in the first round, or at least was one of those teams?
sounds right.
They beat the Sonics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with
And so like
Peyton
he had a huge impact on this game. I actually do kind of like where Dikembe, I combined his two names together. Dikembe Mutombo was ranked at 81. I feel like that's a fair rating. I forget that he won 4 Defensive Player of the Years, which, by the way, like now looking at it, that award is not necessarily that like fluid in terms of like sharing the award every other year with different players. Like it is crazy how many players win it consistently.
We'll watch this podcast 6 years from now. Wemby will have 3 or 4 of them.
Oh yeah.
Wemby's going to just run the table with
way.
the depoy for the next 4 or 5
Another
years.
player that I'm interested to get your guys' opinion on, and this is why I'm a little upset that Shea's not on this list. Jimmy Butler at 83.
So I think here's the thing. In my head, I'm like, okay, if I were to make this list again, kind of like what we were just doing, like with Wemby, if we were thinking like 5-10 years down the road, I honestly don't know if Jimmy Butler sniffs this list.
No.
And that's just like, I think like, again, like if I were to make my own, like, oh, go make your own then if you don't think you should be on there, I might include him still. I don't know. But like, I have also noted multiple times, but I think he's pretty overrated. And I think there's, some iconic playoff moments that will only get.
I think that's what.
Fans.
Yeah.
But again, and even then, it's like somebody actually, I think is some random on X. But like somebody noted that like for the amount of like 40-point games that he has, he also has some incredible stinkers that just kind of get overlooked. And it's like, again, like those iconic things do weigh probably more at times and bringing some of the success of where that team with the Heat was at. But nonetheless, like, I guess I don't know.
Is it just me, or is it more of Jimmy Butler got on this list because of the aura and the moments that he had more than necessarily his career? Because let's be honest, during those prime Miami years, they weren't trying in the regular season.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit different on the Jimmy Butler aspect than you guys. I still think he should be on that list. What he was able to do,
I'm just kind of confused on why he is and some players are not.
I guess, but when I was making the Ben Wallace case for him to be on the list, Ben Wallace was never the best player on a team that won the title. Chauncey was the best player on those Pistons teams. Jimmy was the best guy on the Heat both years they went to the finals in 2020 and in 2023. Now, they lost in 6 in the first one.
Bam is the reason they got there in 2020, but
I'm kidding. But Bam was not the best player. They don't get nearly as close without Jimmy. And then obviously 2023, the finals was kind of a snooze fest. But him being able to take the Heat as an 8 seed to the NBA Finals, as the only 8 seed ever to do that, is impressive. I agree with your take that he's going to fizzle off most lists. Like guys like Shea are going to be thrown on this list soon. I know Luke is already on the list, but Luke is going to keep climbing higher and higher and higher. But there's going to be guys, I think, in the next few years that'll like take like Jimmy Butler's spot, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
I'm not necessarily upset with his ranking at 83, if that makes sense.
But like again, like I mentioned it earlier, the only thing that like I get the 8 seed making the finals thing is historic or whatever, but like they did not hide the fact that they were not trying in the regular season. Like Miami never did. And so that's my little issue that I have with this Jimmy Butler
thing. Is that
thing.
but my question is that more of a Miami thing, or is that a Jimmy Butler thing? Is that like a Pat Riley saying, "Hey, we're gonna take it easy in the regular season," or is that like, because it wasn't just a Jimmy Butler thing? Because there were some years, the Heat were trotting out some goofy lineups. Like Omer Yurtseven was their starting center for a while. They were running some weird lineups and not trying in the regular season because they knew if they just snuck in as a 7 or 8 seed, they would do some damage in the playoffs. So I don't know if that's more of a Jimmy Butler issue or a Heat issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time. I get that you want to have a cutoff for like certain eras or whatever for this list. I feel like if you kind of disrespect the game in terms of not wanting to like play at a competitive level 24/7, I have a hard time wanting to rank you at a high level as well. That's my thing. And I know it may have not been his choice in terms of like how Miami handled him. It's just, I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be ranked here. I just think that the fact that he made it and certain players didn't make it is just rubbing me the wrong way. Like the Ben Wallace thing for sure. Like I would put Ben Wallace here personally over Jimmy Butler or, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We're spending too much time on a guy that doesn't matter in the NBA anymore. So we'll go from 80 now. Let's honestly go from 80 to like 60, just so we can fill some time real quick because we are cutting short. Nate Archibald gets the nod at 80. Number 79 is Grant Hill. 78, Paul George. 77, Pete Maravich. 76, Alex English. Manu Ginobili at 75, which a lot of people forget about how good Manu Ginobili used to be, or at least the impact that he had on the San Antonio Spurs. Dave Cowens at 74. 73, Hal Greer. 72, Paul Arizin, I think is how you pronounce his last name. And then you get the dinosaur at 71, Chris Bosh, the legend himself. Wes Unseld at 70. 69, you got Kyrie Irving. Hunter hinted at him earlier. I'm assuming we may get more takes on Kyrie here in a couple of seconds. 68, Robert Parrish. 67, Dennis Rodman. Kind of fits the bill of that Ben Wallace discussion and Draymond Green discussion that we kind of had earlier, but all the way up at 67. 66, the highly controversial Joel Embiid on this podcast, at least the highly controversial on this podcast specifically, but he gets ranked at 66. 65, Vince Carter. 64, Dame Dollar, Damian Lillard. 63, James Worthy. 62, Pau Gasol. 61, Bob McAdoo. And then at 60, rounding out the last 20, Carmelo Anthony from, the Knicks, Nuggets, and then all the other teams that he played after leaving the New York Knicks in the mid-2010s. So what did you guys think of some of these players ranked in the last 20 or so rankings? We're getting to that point where the argument of the deadline or the cutoff of eras maybe need to start being considered because some of these players I feel like don't match up to the current era players. I'm talking about like Dave Cowens, players like that. I mean, you could honestly probably make the argument that Pete Maravich probably would not be as good in this era as he was back then. But that's the hard thing about making these lists is that you have to deal with that. But what did you guys think? I know Hunter probably loves that Paul George was ranked 78. I know he loves talking some Paul George and Joel Embiid basketball. So, Hunter, what did you think of these last couple of rankings?
Yeah, I guess I don't have any like crazy problems. I do think podcast P's a little high, personally. But then you also have, guys like Brandon Miller who say Paul George is their GOAT. So what do I know about where PG should be ranked? He's apparently as high as number 1 and as low as unranked. So who knows? Who knows there? To be honest, to put some respect on an old player, kind of shocked by Pistol Pete at 77 because he's kind of ahead of his time a little bit. And in terms of putting, we think of the recency, the amount of talent that's in the NBA. It's I'm not saying Pistol Pete's MVP or even all-star if you put him in today by any means, but he's kind of balling back there. I can't lie. He's kind of crazy in just what he did and doing things that hadn't been seen before. But yeah, I think an interesting note is in terms of, where you would put guys that put a handful of everything so obviously 75, our top 75 in NBA history. So we've seen who the NBA has is 75-1 and, Manu Ginobili being kind of that cutoff. So everything over here would be guys that the NBA would very much be pointing towards, even though they obviously respect a lot of, anybody that's been in the NBA. Talk about Kyrie earlier. I don't have a problem with him at 69 or being on the list in general or as high as, I think he could probably be higher, to be honest, especially I think, again, the hard thing going back to that level of impact on the game. I have a hard time, I think, if I were to break it down even more with Kyrie being at 69 to see where other players ahead of him in terms of overall impact. I think him being there is kind of interesting just because he has such the iconic shot from 2016, being called one of the most skilled guards in NBA history, ball handling wise. Similarly, having Vince Carter at 65 in terms of impact of the game, I think you could put him higher. I'm not saying he should be. But in terms of being just an absolute maestro at dunking and players wanting to go crazy when they get that fast break dunk, hard to not be like Vince Carter kind of like upped the game in that substantially by a lot. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because he also has some bad years at the end of his career, which I don't think should matter as much in a top 100 list, but that's just me. But those are at least my initial thoughts from this one.
I got a couple thoughts. I don't really disagree with most of the rankings are fine. There's not like one that's like really irritating to me. The one I kind of want to talk about is how this player's like almost dropped in the last few years, and he's a current player. The fall off of Joel Embiid like actually needs to be studied. We're talking about a guy who was it 2 years ago he won league MVP, or roughly 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. Where I think you could have argued back then he's a top 50 player all time, just on his sheer offensive dominance from the center position, being the first center, said Shaq in 01, or maybe Shaq in 2000, to average 30 points a game and win the scoring title, win MVP, all those accolades, to a guy that you pray that you can just get 40 games out of a year and maybe 10 playoff games. And that's even saying that with the Sixers missing the playoffs last year entirely, but it's crazy. I just would have thought if we did this ranking 3 or 4 years ago, I think he would have been a lot higher. And their rankings on here said someone had him as high as 37, and some people didn't even have him on the list. But I think that's just a great talking point. I love the Vince Carter take. If it wasn't for Vince Carter, who knows if Toronto still has a franchise? He kind of brought a lot of attention and eyeballs to the Raptors and like kept them afloat, even though that relationship towards the end of the tenure kind of ended badly with him forcing his way to New Jersey. But he got people in Canada excited about the NBA, which I always think is super big, getting global outreach, getting cities invested in their teams, so that way there's not teams moving constantly. Other than that, I guess the only other note that I have is I like that Pau Gasol is getting his respect. I like the Pau Gasol ranking.
I think people forget how good he was.
Pau Gasol, when he was on Memphis, was one of the best centers in the NBA, if not, or center / power forward, wherever you wanted to put him. I know on the Lakers he played mainly the 4 next to Andrew Bynum, and he still was effective even after his tenure with the Lakers. He had those few good years with the Bulls, where the Bulls were still competing with Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler. Had some okay years with the Spurs, and I think he ended his career with the Bucks, if I'm
Bucks
not mistaken.
Bucks legend. Amen.
Yeah. But no, Pau Gasol is kind of one of those players that we're going to look back in 20 years, and his name just might not get talked about as much because he's kind of one of those players that he isn't super flashy. He doesn't hit a lot of threes, which this generation usually loves. He wasn't ever a dunker, but he was just a phenomenal basketball player and was the reason why the Lakers were able to win 2 titles in 09 and 2010. But no real issues between 60 and 80 on this list.
Real quick, how did you guys feel about Manu Ginobili being ranked above Tony Parker?
Good. That's my thought.
I don't know. Tony does have that Finals MVP, but I think Manu was just a better player than Tony, if that makes sense. I know Tony's got more of the accolades, he's got more of the All-Star games, but Manu accepting his role and coming off the bench, I think was huge for those Spurs teams. And without him going to the bench, I don't know if they win as many titles as they did. They won, 5 titles between 99 and 2014. No, I don't really have an issue with Ginobili being ranked over Parker.
All right. We'll go over probably the next 30 players or so. At 59, right above Carmelo Anthony, is another moments guy in Tracy McGrady. At 59, 58, we got Willis Reed. Luka Doncic, currently LA Laker at 57. Dolph Shays at 56. Bill Walton, the late great Bill Walton at 55. Reggie Miller, who another great moments guy, which I think I'm seeing kind of a trend with certain rankings on certain players, is The moments may help in terms of ranking. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be at this ranking, but we'll see when we discuss this. 53, Gary Payton. 52, Dwight Howard. At 51, we got Ray Allen. He's got that huge shot for Miami to help LeBron in the NBA Finals. At 50, Dominique Wilkins. 49, Paul Pierce. 48, Russell Westbrook. 47, Elvin Hayes. 46, Kevin McHale. Anthony Davis, a guy that I think a lot of people saw a chance of him potentially being in the top 25, top 30 potentially at one point. It's just injuries held him back a lot in his career, resulting in that ranking at 45. 44, George Mikan. Everybody knows the Mikan drill that George Mikan made famous. I had to do that a bunch growing up. Walt Frazier at 43. 42, George Gervin. One of the more underrated shooters maybe in NBA history, averaging around 25 points a game. Rick Barry at 41. At 40, Patrick Ewing, one of the all-time greats in New York Knicks history. Clyde Drexler at 39. 38, we got Bob Pettit. 37, Bob Cousy. 36, AI, Allen Iverson. 35, Steve Nash. 34, James Harden. 33, Jason Kidd. 32, Kawhi Leonard. 31, John Havlicek. And rounding out the last couple of rankings, 30, Chris Paul. What were your guys' thoughts on the last 30 or so rankings? I mean, you saw a lot of guards, which is kind of funny. The last bit that we looked at was a lot of kind of forwards or big men. And then all of a sudden we've seen a lot of guards in the last couple of rankings here from 60 to 30.
Hunter, you want to take this one or me?
You can go for it. If you got your thoughts collected.
I'm discussing the elephant in the room. Reggie Miller is way too high on this list for my liking. I don't know if you guys will agree with me on that. I think when you look at some of the players behind him, I would have Vince Carter ahead of him. I would have Luka Doncic ahead of him. I am not trying to be a Reggie Miller hater, but there's some guys that are behind him in this ranking that I just feel like he needs to be behind. I see Reggie in more of the mid 70s ranking, maybe high 60s versus what is he, 55? 54. That seems really high.
It's funny because the lowest ranking he got was 76.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the one that really grinds my gears. I don't know. Other than that, I don't really have too many other issues with this list. From 60 to 30. I do like that the current players that are still playing, like James Harden and Westbrook, are getting their proper respect with how dominant they were in the late 2010s and throughout their entire career. I do like that. Davis feels really high, but maybe that's more projection ranking than it is right now. If Davis has 3 more seasons of what he's doing right now, maybe he can justify this ranking, but no, Davis also seems really high.
Before Hunter goes, maybe I'm gonna be stretching this a little bit. Am I crazy to think that Dwight Howard might need to be above Anthony Davis and Patrick Ewing? Because was Patrick Ewing ever the best center in the NBA? And I'm talking not even close.
Yeah, I think the hard time I always have with thinking of like Dwight Howard is that his peak was like one of the best, arguably during the time, like the best player, to be honest. Like like that was happening. That was about when I started watching basketball, so maybe it wasn't as drastic, but like my ball knowledge especially was like 2K at that time, and everybody loved Dwight. And then even looking back, it's like that dude was a menace, right? But his fall off is kind of insane too. And I think that's where it becomes really tricky because his peak was first option on a title contender that did get to that point. Like they didn't win, but they got there versus, obviously like AD, like, I would agree. I think he's too high, but he does have that title, and he arguably was the best player on the team. And the reason they won, the biggest reason they won, potentially. Well, I might take that up with Lakers fan Chase later, but that's an argument. And similarly with Patrick Ewing, it's like he again never got it, but was like the reason, arguably, why they were in the position they were. And so I think that's where it gets really tricky with a guy like Dwight, where there's an argument you can put him above. I don't think that's completely outlandish to say. I don't know if I would agree with it though either.
I think the thing that hurts Dwight is his last 6 years, he played for so many different teams that it was just kind of hard to keep track of, because he went from the Lakers to the Rockets, and then the Hawks, and then the Hornets, and then this. I'm pulling this up so I get this right. Hawks, Hornets, Wizards, Lakers, Sixers, Lakers. His last
you got to specify that was a whole decade, not just 6 years, because that's stretching it a little.
Well, okay, really since his last year in Houston, so 2015-16,
yes,
to his last year in the league, which is 2021-2022. He just kept bouncing from team to team, didn't really establish an identity. He did have some great moments for that Lakers bubble championship team. I don't know if the Lakers win that title without Dwight. He was a huge part for him. But I just think his last few years were a lot to be desired. It kind of soured people and their view on how dominant Dwight was truly when he was with the Magic. So,
yeah, that's fair. It's just one of those where, honestly, I'd even feel like there's an argument that you could rank him above Paul Pierce too, just because like you said, his peak was so good that I feel like it's kind of hard to rank him, because his peak was so good, but his floor was really, really rough at times. But I guess I'm not upset with it. It's just one of those where it's it's kind of rough. Yeah. The thing that sucks with certain things is, I bet you if you ask a lot of people who was a better point guard, Allen Iverson or Steve Nash, I think a lot of people would take Allen Iverson. But when you really look at what Steve Nash was able to do accolades-wise, I think that's a big reason why he was ranked above him. It's only one spot, but it is notable that those two and Jason Kidd were within four rankings. James Harden was in between Jason Kidd and Steve Nash. But a lot of great point guards in this last set of rankings. What did you guys think about Chris Paul specifically being ranked only at the 30th spot? I'm not saying that that's wrong or anything. I just know a lot of people consider him potentially one of the best point guards of all time.
Not to jump the gun a little bit, I think it's kind of hard to talk about it with also not noting that at 29 is John Stockton, which very much shows what is valued from this point forward. Because again, kind of, this is all over the place, obviously, with the list, but it's you kind of saw, you weren't seeing many all defensive type players when it's that's all that they're known for, specifically inside the top 75. And similarly, from this point forward, it is all scoring for the most. Again, there's guys that obviously have great rebounding games, great passing games, but it's from here on out, this is where we get the first option level players from here on, this point forward for the rest of the list. And so I think that just kind of shows where they're at. Personally, I guess I feel like I would probably put Chris Paul a little bit higher. That's just me. But I think for where he got put with the people around him, with John Stockton specifically right there, and then obviously with AI and Steve Nash being not far behind, it makes sense at the very least.
Yeah. I agree. I would potentially switch Paul for Stockton, but I do like that, even if you don't want to switch those two, that he's still behind Isaiah Thomas, still behind Curry, still behind Magic, because those three are the upper echelon of best point guards ever. And I'm glad that Chris isn't ranked above those three guys, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I almost me personally, I think that there's a valid argument for Chris Paul over Isaiah Thomas personally. I know that injuries derailed Zeke's career like crazy. So that's really hard to discuss that.
But Zeke's got 2 titles, and Zeke's got
that's
a
the
finals
thing that
MVP,
hurts Chris
and
Paul
that's-
really bad.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the titles thing, which like you have to put that into consideration, especially because he was their best player on both championships, even though Joe Dumars did get one of those finals MVP. If you look at pound for pound who the best player was on that roster, Zeke was their guy. It's just hard because, man, Chris Paul, man, when he's like John Stockton. Like John Stockton is different though, because I feel like you could see the flaws in his game and if whether or not it would have translated in every era of the NBA. Chris Paul's game translates in every level of NBA history, and it just sucks that he doesn't have that championship. Because I wonder what even one championship with the Clippers in his first run would have done for him in his rankings.
I think the thing I would also, and again, this comes from someone that would love to see Chris Paul higher. I'm gonna break this rule later. It potentially in a different episode since we seem to be running out of time and could probably go for much longer in our top 25.
So what we're gonna finish this episode and potentially because our limit is usually an hour, and that's because of the streaming limits that StreamYard has. But we can always download this video and upload it to YouTube, and we'll just share the link. Or people can listen on our audio podcast as well. So we'll share that stuff out. We'll just make this one episode because I don't know if we need to talk about it for more than one.
Yeah. No. But anyway, to get back to my previous point. No, you're good. You're good. I think I like I said, I'm going to break this rule probably in the next episode. But I think there is less merit to saying you can put a player like in today's generation back, because you could put almost anybody back and have it be like I would agree. I think you could probably put Chris Paul on that Pistons team. Debatably still win. Who knows? Debatably still win. But you could do that with a lot of players. And so but I think when you can bring a player forward, which to be honest, even though with his height, I don't know if they necessarily win because that's something we've seen recently. I don't know if IT necessarily wins like a title today, but I don't think that should demerit him at all, because I think he's still going to be a stellar basketball player. And I think that does bring value to be able to say man, he's someone who could play probably in a lot of different, eras and be successful. And so, and he did win a chip. That's at the end of the day, that is, and they were very difficult too. They're pointed at that as this is a Detroit team being a thorn in people's side. So
let's move on to the next. We'll go all the way to number 11 so we can do the top 10 and top 5. So at number 29, we have John Stockton, like you guys mentioned, just right above Chris Paul. And after that, you got Scottie Pippen, who a lot of people have tried to debate whether or not he could have led a team by himself in his prime. Because Jordan and him were, that duo in the NBA during those Bulls championships teams. And everybody's kind of always wondered whether or not he could have done that by himself. Potentially, I think I've heard a couple people in conversations. Obviously, it's people that grew up in that era and maybe have this memory of how good he was, not necessarily whether or not it would have translated if he was on a team by himself. But a lot of them said that the Bulls may have had the 2 best players in the league at the time, depending on the year. So him being at 28 is fairly fair. I'll be interested to see if you guys would prefer him being higher. 27 is Isaiah Thomas, like we mentioned, a very good career, key player on those bad boy Pistons teams. 26, Elgin Baylor, famously known for his career with the Lakers. Did not win an NBA championship, which is something I feel like a lot of people forget about, because everybody knows Elgin Baylor. If you consume a lot of basketball media, you'll know who Elgin Baylor is. So the fact that he didn't win an NBA championship is kind of crazy. Speaking of no titles, 25, you got Charles Barkley, who does have an MVP though to his name. And then you get Hunter's favorite player of all time,
yeah,
Giannis.
We don't have enough time to even talk about where I think Giannis should be.
At 24.
We definitely don't have enough time.
23 is Dwayne Wade. 22 is Karl Malone. 21 is Moses Malone. Julius Erving at 20, as we're getting to the top 20 now. David Robinson, a famous Spur, at number 19. Dirk Nowitzki, one-time champion and MVP for the Dallas Mavericks. Nikola Jokic, multiple-time MVP, NBA champion, and a Finals MVP. Kevin Garnett at 16, he won an MVP, has a championship with the Celtics. Career is known for his time in Minnesota and Boston. Jerry West at 15, a one-time champion, 14-time All-Star for the Lakers. Had a huge front office career as well, but that's not a part of these rankings. Just want to give him his flowers for his career, the late, great Jerry West. Number 14, Oscar Robertson. A lot of people compared this guy to Russell Westbrook at one point when Westbrook was having his triple-double MVP season. Number 13, Kevin Durant, one of the best scorers of all time, one of the hardest players to defend in terms of scoring. Two-time champion, one-time MVP. Keem Olajuwon at number 12, two-time champion during those years that Jordan was off, but I feel like there's an argument to be made that Rockets teams those 2 years would have probably at least competed for a chance to win it if Jordan would have been in those 2 seasons. And then rounding out the recent rankings, number 11, Kobe Bryant. So, Hunter, what do you want to talk about?
Oh man, we're gonna turn this into a 2-hour episode.
Let's go.
Giannis being at 24, I wouldn't have a problem with until you start looking at who's they would put ahead of him, and I'm like, wow, okay. I'm sure it would get to this point. I could go down the list, but I'm just gonna jump the gun and go straight to the man that I think is the biggest fraud on this list at number 17, Nikola Jokic. And I already know you guys will disagree with me, which is fine. But look, man, I've had it with people saying that the 2020s is the Jokic era. This is not true. He has one title and doesn't in total points, assists, rebounds, or steals, and even blocks. We'll throw that in there. Does not lead in any of those. He doesn't. Not even assists. Is the best passing big man ever. Does not have the most assists in
leads
his
in
era.
MVPs.
Which are also, in my opinion, just fraudulent, but we'll get there when we get there. I think, when we have Mr. Triple-Double Man, Russell Westbrook, where he is, the OG Triple-Double Man, then put Jokic here, and I'm not even, I'm not going to entertain the thought that I necessarily think Westbrook should be ahead of Jokic all time. But again, and especially, I am glad that we did not also put Big O lower than Jokic. That would have been absolutely insane to do, and that I'm sure there'll probably be people out there that disagree with me, but go for it. You're wrong. But yeah, I think having that much of a gap between Giannis and Jokic is absolutely appalling. First of all, having Kevin Garnett even ahead of Giannis, I think is appalling. I think I'll stop at 15. That's where I'll cut off. I won't disrespect the great Jerry West by any means, but having him, for some reason, we're still nodding towards Karl Malone. I think we should just stop. Personally, that's just my take. He's a great scorer, but we need to stop talking about him. I think there's an argument with Dirk. Again, this is probably me now once being a homer. I think Giannis is better than Dirk, but Dirk does have a very great title and was a phenomenal player, so I'll leave that there. And then another one, Julius Erving ahead of him, I think is ridiculous. We've already had this. I don't think we've had this discussion before. We talked about it probably a little bit, but this has been talked about on ESPN where it's like, and even LeBron talked about it. It's like, this is where I'm going to break my rule. You put Giannis back there where Dr. J was, and it's no competition. There's no, he is the freak. He is probably Zeus himself if you put him in the NBA during that time. So that's where I'll break my rule right there. But I just think the amount of disrespect, we're going to look at this list in 10 years from now after Giannis retires, and people are going to realize how much they took this man for granted. I'll just put it flat out there. And I think this is just one of the points for that is I don't know how you can look at a man that's the most dominant player since Shaq with more athleticism, I would say, and to be able to do what he does consistently and iconically. Milwaukee doesn't have a team if Giannis does not end up there. So yeah. I just think it's ridiculous to have him as at that point.
I'm not disagreeing with anything that you just said because I think he does deserve a lot more praise than some of these players above him. This is one thing I wanted to mention. This list is listed as the top 100 NBA players of all time. why are we listing? I know that there was a merger, but why are we listing ABA stats when referring to the top NBA players of all time? The ABA stats, in my opinion, I know why people want to include them, but that's in my opinion, the NBA won. Sorry, it's I don't care about the 19 whatever ABA NBA championship. No one talks about that. Heck, I don't even think, does the NBA recognize those as championships?
I think so, but I honestly don't know for 100% certainty.
It's-
I don't
They're in their
think
own-
they do.
It's like the NFL recognizing championships before the Super Bowl. I think
That's probably where they like specifically use the word like world title. And stuff
Yeah.
like that would probably be
Okay.
my guess.
So like Giannis should be above Julius Erving. Like there's no debate about that. And I could see the argument obviously of that. I think Nikola Jokic and probably Giannis should be right by each other. Not saying Jokic, in my opinion, should be below Giannis. That's my opinion. I the one that I would push back a little bit on, and it's not even the Boston thing. It's the Kevin Garnett thing, is because I don't remember for 100% how dominant he was with Minnesota because they were never able to make it far enough. So that's the one thing. But yet at the time, he was like considered one of the best players in the league when he was with those Timberwolves teams. He did win MVP. Part of me almost like can see the little bit of resemblance in terms of how Giannis is being treated because of Kevin Garnett, similar to Kevin Garnett, because Kevin Garnett was never able to make it far with Minnesota. Yes, Giannis does have that NBA championship with the Bucks, but like I feel like he gets forgotten about a lot. And Hunter, you know, like me, I've picked Giannis to win MVP multiple times over the last couple of years heading into the season because I think people forget how valuable, which is in the name of MVP, Giannis has been to this franchise and to every team that Milwaukee has ever assembled, because it seems like every year in the last 5 years, or at least since they've won the championship, a new issue has come up and Giannis has had to find a way to work around it.
I don't have any response. I hate, this is when I hate these lists, is when it gets to this point. But
yeah. Dawson, do you have any issues with any of these rankings at all?
Brock, I gotta address the elephant in the room. Your Julius Erving take, I don't know if I agree with at all. I'm not saying he should go up, but I don't know if we can totally discount the ABA, because half the best players in the world were in the ABA at the time, and even when he went to the NBA, he finished listen to the stretch of MVP finishes he had: second, first, third, fifth, sixth in his years with the Sixers. They won a title, and they don't win a title without him on the Philadelphia 76ers. He still was in the NBA for 11 years. He's been in the NBA more than twice as long as he was for the ABA. His numbers dropped a little bit because he was in the ABA obviously earlier in his career, but I don't know if we should just discredit his ABA stats whatsoever. But that's not my real issue with this list. I don't even think we really talked about this guy. We kind of just like allowed him to go unscathed, but I'm going to bring it up. I think David Robinson is way high on this list. You guys can call me out for it. I don't care. I think Giannis is a way better player than David Robinson. I think Charles Barkley is a better player than David Robinson. Dwayne Wade, I don't know if I can get that far.
David Robinson has a scoring title.
I don't know. I just think David is way too high on this list. Am I the only one that thinks that? I know, Brock, you already was shaking your head that you think he's better than Charles Barkley. I personally would have Charles all day over David Robinson.
He averaged 24 points, 12 rebounds, and almost 4 blocks in his rookie season.
But Charles Barkley was the round mound of rebound. He was a 6'6" power forward getting 15 rebounds a game. And he was dominant for 16 years. Now, the one thing that hurts David Robinson, and I will cut him some slack, he didn't come to the NBA until he was already like 24. Does that sound right? Because I know he went to the Naval Academy, so he was already a few years behind a lot of his peers. He came into the NBA as a rookie in 1990, so he was only able to play 14 years. But even then, I would still rather have a guy like Charles Barkley over David Robinson.
He and one other player are the only players in NBA history to win a scoring title and Defensive Player of the Year in their careers.
I don't know. I just think a lot of people forget how dominant Charles Barkley was. In those 90s, it was in the early 90s, I should say, because Charles kind of tailed off about 95, 96 when he got traded to Houston. But Charles was the second best player in the league at that point. Charles was an absolute monster in the 90s. He took that Suns team to the finals. They lost in 6 games to the Bulls, but the Bulls were going to beat anyone that showed up on that side of the bracket. So it didn't really matter. But him dragging that Suns team to the finals, I think is super impressive. Not to say they didn't have good players, but I just think the Charles Barkley disrespect is a little crazy. And I think
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just would have Robinson over him just because of David Robinson. I feel like gets a little bit of the short end of the stick because he was so dominant. His accolades are unbelievable. I mean, heck, he finished 6th place in MVP voting his rookie season, but he was never the guy in terms of his position, unfortunately. No, or at least no one looked at him as the guy, it felt like. And that's just because of the era that he was in and how dominant centers were at that time. So I'm not saying that you're wrong in terms of the Charles Barkley thing, but the David Robinson part is where I get a little the above David Robinson thing. I could see them being like right by each other, and maybe you can flip it then, and I would be okay with it. But I don't know.
I think the other thing to note, like within this list, and like again, like it's a consensus thing, so I don't know if it's intentional or not. But the highest player to not win a title on this list is the cutoff is 22 with Karl Malone. Stop, which I still think is ridiculous.
You keep mentioning him.
But that is everybody from 21 and forward has at least one title. And so I do think that I'm not saying Charles Barkley was not insane. I could see him being put higher, true. But I think David Robinson having 2 champions, honestly, championships is probably like the biggest kicker in the whole thing. I think the value and weight that championships have within like how people did this list is probably what like ultimately separated the two.
Yeah,
that's fair. I will respect that take. But
the last one that I wanted to mention, and I told you guys this off screen, this is when I get a little bit of issue with these lists, is when they have previous lists of different things that contradict each other. Before we get to the top 10, let me find this screenshot that I took. In 2018, Bleacher Report said that there was no question that this distinction belongs to Kobe Bryant in reference to NBA Player of the Decade. In 2025,
back up. Were they saying he was the 2010s Player of the Decade?
This was in 2018, so before the.
So the 2000s Player of the Decade.
Yes.
Okay.
2025, I think Bleacher Report was like, wasn't even the best player wearing a championship belt for his teams or whatever, for, the Shaq years or whatever. And so I have a little bit of an issue. The Kobe Bryant thing, I have a little bit of an issue because I actually do think he was the player of the 2000s. And I feel like if you dominated that era and that decade, I feel like you probably should get the nod for the top 10. When we get to the top 10, I would. Kobe for me will always have I will always be biased to him, unfortunately, because he's the player, which is funny enough, on the team I literally cannot stand. But like that shows you how good of a player he was at his best. I just can't figure out how he doesn't make the top 10 personally. But once we get to the top 10, it's hard to argue whether certain players should be ranked over certain people because now you're just splitting hairs in terms of like picking one or the other in certain aspects of the game. So me personally, I would have put Kobe a little higher. I think he was, when you think of the 2000s, the guy when you look back at that era. I mean, heck, doesn't 2K call the 2000s the Kobe era or something like that?
Probably.
But
Yeah, I think so.
That's just my thoughts.
So you don't think he should be 11? You think he's a for sure top 10 player then?
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's hard to pick between certain players who he can be over.
The top 10 is getting so loaded anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain guys that just can't be subbed out.
Yeah.
He's on that fringe bubble for me.
Yeah. Because once we get to the top 10, the first person mentioned at number 10 is Steph Curry. And I think he, without a doubt, deserves to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Arguably, you can make an argument that he's borderline top 5 in the situation, depending on what you prefer in terms of basketball and how you determine who's had a better career. So we'll go through the first 5 of the top 10. Steph Curry's at number 10. Received the highest ranking of 4, lowest ranking of 13. Wilt Chamberlain at 9 was also highest ranking of 4. Was also lower than 10 as well at 11. Larry Bird at 8. Highest ranking was 5. Lowest ranking was 12. Tim Duncan, highest ranking was 5. Lowest ranking was 11. And then Shaq, who is arguably one of the most dominant players in NBA history, is just outside of the top 5 at number 6. Highest ranking of 5. Lowest ranking of 9.
Hunter, do you want to start this one off or me?
Yeah, I think this is where it gets really, really difficult because, especially to kind of go back to like what Brock was saying, when we get into like the top 10, this is kind of like where I almost have like this is where my mind starts breaking because I put a cutoff in my head of like, all right, overall like level of like impact to the game in terms of like being an icon, kind of has to go out the window. And if that's the case, I personally feel like Wilt Chamberlain should be lower. However, it is impossible to not like if what Wilt Chamberlain did on the basketball court was real, which is a different conversation to have.
There's no tapes. I've never seen it. So
that's for the conspiracy episode later this summer.
I, in my right conscience, cannot put him like when Brock was like, all right, I'm putting Kobe in the top 10. I'm like, gosh, I can't believe I have to say out loud when one of my friends is a Lakers fan and on the internet to any Lakers fan who would ever find it. I don't think Kobe's top 10 personally. But in terms of like if I'm like weighing the icon thing, it's like, okay, then I have to put Kobe top 10. But who am I taking out? And if what Wilt Chamberlain did is true, you cannot put him out. I'm sorry. Like, there's just no way. If he really did drop 100 points, if he really averaged like a 50 in a season, there is no way you could put him outside. I'm fine. Like, I'm fine if you want to put him like, if you want to put him underneath Curry, that's fine. Curry has to be in the top 10. Will, if what he did is true, has to be in the top 10. Larry Bird probably has to be in the top 10. I hate the Celtics, but we might talk more about him actually when we get to the top 5 because I think Brock and I share an opinion that Dawson disagrees with when we were going through this episode ourselves. Tim Duncan has to be ahead of Kobe, though. I'm sorry. He has to be.
Yeah.
But in terms of it being like the 2000s era, that's where I think it gets really, really hard, though, because people do remember that as Kobe. But you have to put Tim.
I will go on record, and Hunter and Dawson both know, I love the post players, power forwards and centers. Like, it's one of my favorite positions to watch in basketball. Tim Duncan is the best power forward of all time. Yeah. And I will argue people on that.
I'm a Giannis fan, and I still agree with that right now. Very much so.
And it's kind of sad how many people forget about how good Tim Duncan was, because he wasn't necessarily this flamboyant player that like taunted or said things to the media or anything. Heck, his career is so just kind of like not average in terms of like just not that good, average in terms of stardom and not like getting involved in the media or anything. I think the most notable controversy that he may have had may have been laughing at an official and then getting thrown out because he was laughing at the official on the bench. Like, I can't remember another game or a scenario where I'm like, this is a really, really bad look for Tim Duncan. Not that that was even a bad look. He got thrown out for literally just laughing at the official. He is one of the most underappreciated players in the NBA, which is funny though, because people still put him in the top 10. Rightfully so, though. He needs to be in the top 10. It's just I'm worried about the next generation of fans forgetting about how dominant and great Tim Duncan was. Because in his 40s, not 40s, in his heyday of his career, he was still a key part of those Spurs championship runs, or I guess that championship run, NBA Finals runs that they had in the back half of his career.
Yeah, he just like, bro did his job and then some. Like every time, like just unnoticed, would do everything that would get asked and continuously like delivered on both sides of the basketball. And then Shaq at 6. I in my mind, I want to put
5.
Shaq. I want to put Shaq top 5 so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like this is again, you get it's just a preview to who's next on the list is Bill Russell. And that man has too many titles to just like cast aside just a little bit. But yeah, that like I don't have like, again, like with the top 10, this is where I feel pretty comfortable like trying to make my own. At least I'm gonna have a hard time doing it. But I don't have any like crazy like there's absolutely no way like this is right.
Yep.
So
yeah. So I personally would have put Shaq in the top 5 as well. I think Bill Russell and Chamberlain kind of need to be like back to back, kind of thing. I get the championship thing outweighs each other. Again, those two are just so weird because it's like if those things did happen, like they're undeniable in terms of their legacies and everything. It's just hard. It's really like they just need to be like, yes, they're in the top 10, but we're not going to reference them, kind of thing. Like that's how I feel with them. I don't know. But yeah, Bill Russell is in the top 5. And then at number 4 is Magic Johnson, who I actually would switch Shaq with still. I'd still put Shaq over Magic Johnson personally. I actually think that Magic Johnson, speaking of putting players back to back, I think it's really hard to separate Magic Johnson and Larry Bird as far as they did on this list.
Yeah, I think that's where I hinted. Like, I personally would agree with that. I have a hard time with the Will. I honestly have a harder time with Wilt and Bill being back to back, just because, like, again, the amount, the difference there is just too crazy to like do. But like, yeah, with Bird and Magic, it really was so back and forth, and like before someone that's gonna be probably number 1. Even though that's debatable with at least a couple of us here in the show. They ran the table. Later. It was them. Detroit, was the thorn in the side, but it was them. And they both, they played, with Larry's shooting, with Magic's, honestly, like almost everything else. Like I think that I have a hard time. I would agree putting more of a gap between them. I feel like they should probably be closer together. I think I would still give the edge to Magic by all means. But yeah, I think if I were to lower somebody, it probably would be Magic. That's no disrespect to him by any means. Because even they have a gap in championships as well. But it's not as substantial as Wilt and
How
Until
so? How so?
by more than I can count on my hands.
Yeah.
That's how many. It's quite a margin compared to Magic and Larry. So always got to get in there. Anyway, Dawson, I know, and we talked about it before. You were not fully on board by any means, so I would like to hear. I would love to hear your case as well, which I don't think is wrong by any means. I'm not dying on this hill.
For the Magic Johnson take,
Yeah, Magic and Larry.
again, I'm in the same thought process as you guys. I think Magic is clear. Clearly is the wrong term, but I think it's. I don't think there's a question among most basketball fans. We mostly assume people are going to pick Magic over Bird, but they are right neck and neck. And when you look at their career splits, it's about as 50-50 other than one title. Magic has 9 more games played in his career, which is super cool that they were that close to games played.
Yeah.
Bird has him in points and rebounds. Magic has him assists and steals. Bird's got him in blocks. Magic's got the better shooting percentage. Bird's got better 3-point free throw percentage.
I would have thought Magic Johnson would have had more blocks than Bird. I don't know why.
Nope, Bird's average
That's crazy.
0.8 for his career, and Magic averaged 0.4. Magic is a little his player efficiency numbers, like his advanced analytics, are a little bit kinder to him than they are to Larry. Both Hall of Famers, both 9-time first team All NBA guys, both 10-time All NBA guys, both 3-time MVPs, 12-time All. Like, it is as close as it can possibly get. But there's 2 categories that lean Magic, and that's championships, which Magic has 5 to Bird's 3, and Finals MVP, which Magic has 3 to Bird's 2. And what's crazy is when looking at both these guys, is these guys, their careers were cut short due to different reasons. Like, we think of basketball players now, like the truly great ones, they're playing 16, 17, 18, 19 years. Durant's going into what, year 18 now? Brown's going into year 22. Like, we're getting to like unheard of like season marks for these all-time players. But Magic and Bird only played like 11 NBA seasons. And I think that sounds right now that I'm saying that. But these numbers could have been a lot higher. We could have seen potentially more championships. Obviously, Bird had his back issues at the end of his career. Magic had the HIV virus that ended his career shortly. But I would personally lean Magic just off of the titles and the Finals MVPs. But that's really splitting hairs. I don't hate the take that they should be right next to each other. But I would still lean Magic. I would still have him top 5 in my humble opinion. But the one I want to talk about that we kind of I really want to hammer home is the Kobe Curry one. That one. Now I'm of the mindset that Curry is the better player all time. But the numbers are not in Curry's favor because Kobe's got more titles, more first team All NBAs, more All NBAs, more All Defensive teams. Does have one less MVP, but it's got more Finals MVPs and more All Stars. It's crazy that Curry, we think of him as the top 10 player all time, but he was only considered one of the best 2 guards in the NBA for 4 seasons. If you think about it like that, because he was a first team All NBA guard for 4 years. Whereas Kobe has 11 years where he was considered at least a top 2 guard in the NBA. So those numbers really hurt Curry, but I have Curry higher just on his basketball, his impact to the game, the way the game changed from like 2015 to what we look at now, where teams would maybe shoot. If you shot 33s in a game 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you were looked at as like the outcast of the league. Now, if you're not shooting at least 45 to 50, you are well behind the pace of the NBA. So I think for that reason and the impact on the game, I think I slightly lean Curry 10 over Kobe at 11.
Yeah, and the unanimous MVP.
Yeah,
is the thing that like I think that. Good Lord, there's a fly that keeps flying around and it's bugging the crap out of me. Sorry. The unanimous MVP thing is the thing that I think would take the cake for that situation.
But imagine if Curry had like the same amount of first team All NBAs. We could be looking at Curry as a top 5 guy of all time, above Magic
There's
Johnson.
people, and I'm I'm not going to give my take because I really don't want to get into that argument. There's people that think Steph Curry's the best point guard of all time. And there's an argument to be had.
I'm open to that. I'm all ears on that one. I'd still lean Magic, but there's for sure discussion on that.
So, and it's crazy because we talk about how one little thing can change someone's career drastically. One little blown 3-1 lead didn't happen. I think that there could be some major shifts in this top 10.
Or if the voters in 2015 just weren't stupid and picked Iguodala over Curry. But that's another thing. That's just an NBA oopsie.
Yeah. But NBA loves some oopsies every once in a while. Now we're getting to the top 3. It's the 3 that everybody kind of expects when you talk about ranking your top 3 players of all time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jordan, LeBron are always in the conversation in terms of who's the best player of all time, who's the greatest to ever play in the NBA. Depending on the era, you can usually guess who's going to vote where in that situation. Bleacher Report released this article, so we're going off of them. At number 3, with a highest ranking of number 1, so he did receive some votes of being the greatest of all time. But he also had a lowest ranking of outside of the top 3. We have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is a 6-time champion, 6-time MVP, 2-time final MVP, numerous All-Stars, All-NBAs, all defensive player teams members, 25 points a game almost, 11 rebounds, almost 3 blocks a game as well throughout his career while shooting 56% from the field. One of the most dominant players. Everybody knows his sky hook and all that. Kareem at number 3. And then you get to the age-old question of who the greatest of all time is. And it's funny because this, like, I think I even hinted at it last week on our conversation previewing this. But the one vote that may have decided it was one of these players did receive a vote for number 3 and not number 2 or number 1, which may have resulted in who got number 1 and who got number 2. But LeBron is numbered 2 as Dawson turns his camera off. LeBron is number 2.
I didn't want to hear you say it.
According to Bleacher Report, and Michael Jordan is number 1. And again, it is really back and forth between one another. The only thing that I will say is I don't like talking about this anymore, just because it's hard to determine how good Jordan would have been if Jordan didn't take those 2 years off in the NBA. I know it's only 2 years, but like we're potentially talking about 8 in a row as a possibility, like as an argument kind of thing. I know Dawson's sitting there thinking of an argument to go against that. And I don't know. It's hard. I truly don't think there's one thing that stands out over the others. Maybe the 3-1 comeback. I know you can mention the all-time points, all-time stats for LeBron and all that, but you got to keep in mind that, like, you know, for some reason Jordan wanted to go play baseball. We can debate on what theories are why Jordan ended up going and playing baseball for 2 years, but Jordan at number 1, LeBron at number 2, Kareem at number 3. Any of you considering putting Kareem at number 1?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. No, don't think so.
Dawson, I'll let you as the true LeBron fan.
Oh man,
I'll let
you. Where do I start with this list? I will preface this assuming the status quo stays the same, which I don't think the Lakers are going to win the title this year. I think in most people's minds this debate is over. Wherever you stand on that hill, I think people aren't going to change their minds at this point. Unless something crazy happens in the next 12 months, which I don't foresee. The ranking now is going to be the same ranking 5-10 years from now for most people. But this notion that Jordan would have won 8 straight titles in the 90s, we need to put this to bed. Okay? I'm not sure they beat the Rockets in 94 or 95. Okay?
I'm not saying that would have happened. I'm just proposing it.
But I don't know. It's hard to make this argument because the facts are out there. If you really want to support one side or the other, you can just look it up and form your own opinion. But I think LeBron has done more with less, if that makes sense. LeBron has carried some pretty bad teams to the finals. And yes, you can point at the 4-6 finals record. I get that. But no one was beating those 2015 to 28, or especially 2017 to 2018 Warriors, not with Durant. And him carrying his greatest achievement, his first one is winning that title in Cleveland. His second greatest achievement is bringing that bum 2018 Cavs team to the title. And then scoring 51 in game one and then getting swept because J.R. Smith didn't know that they were tied and not up one. But no, there's so many angles to look at this, but I don't know. Jordan's got 6 titles. LeBron's got more points all time. Jordan's got the better defensive stats. LeBron's got the longevity stats. It's really whatever you prefer. If you want to call it the greatest player of all time or the best player of all time, I still, you guys know where I stand on this hill. I think LeBron is, and I don't know. I think we got to destroy some of these Jordan narratives that are still going on with these old heads talking. But no, I would have LeBron number 1 and Jordan number 2. So, and I know Hunter agrees with me.
I also share that opinion. I think, for me, I get it. Like, it really is. I like, that's something I have to about. Like, that is where people are just going to land there.
Yeah.
There might be some people that, once LeBron retires, they're like, oh my gosh, now I can finally like respect him. I know Brock won't, but there might be some. Who knows?
I will go on record. If LeBron wins a title before, like, and contribute, like a key, like number 2 or number 1 contributor, if he like, I don't think this is why I don't think it will happen, because I don't think LeBron can fall off in terms of contributions to a team and win a title. But I will go on record. If LeBron wins one more title and is a key contributor, wins Finals MVP, I will then put him at number 1. So that is out there.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Book it. Put it in.
So,
record it. Clip it.
So that's like, I don't want people to think that I'm not
July 30th, 2025.
I'm not going to change my mind.
Lakers win the title. Brock thinks LeBron's the GOAT.
That's so like, I don't want people to think that. I just like right now. Yeah. Jordan's probably who I would take personally.
Yeah. But yeah, I think as I lean towards LeBron, like, again, like this is like one of the, it becomes such a, as these lists are like a splitting hairs thing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what originally did it for me to get Pookie to be my GOAT was when he got the points. Like at that point for me in my head, I get that Jordan has more titles. In my head, like there was nothing else that LeBron could possibly do for me to warrant him being lower. And I think the other thing too is like, when Jordan didn't win the title, it's not that he didn't play good or anything, but like, it wasn't great though. He like without having the absolute core that he had, he wasn't sniffing the finals. And I think the other thing too that is more towards a nod to LeBron is like you look at all the players, literally any of the players on this list who have made it, that aren't still like early in their career, they all fall off. And it's not that LeBron hasn't dipped at all. But the man is still LeBron James 22 years later. That is just insane to me. And it's like, oh, well, modern medicine and all this stuff. I don't care. The man's 40 and babying people that should be better than him still. It is insane to me. And so I think for me, that's really what it does. The dude just can do everything. He could literally just do anything and everything on a basketball court. Again, not that Jordan can't, but I am of the opinion that LeBron can do it better. So yeah, that's where I land in this debate.
We could do a whole episode on just this 1 versus 2.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it is insane.
Because I'm trying to not do a super deep dive on either side. Just trying to give my honest opinion, like as a taking a step back.
Can I propose something of why certain people lean a certain way?
Yeah, that's fun. It's wrong,
and,
but like
and
it's
this
okay.
is what?
It's wrong, but it's okay.
Well, this is another reason why I love watching Kobe so much, and this is my favorite part because I love people comparing LeBron to Jordan because they are not the same player whatsoever in terms of how they play the game. That's why I love Kobe so much, is because he like play style. Like, I mean, heck, you can literally see things on YouTube right now of people literally morphing Kobe and Jordan back to like overlaying each other, doing the same exact moves. I think right now, basically at this point, it's more of play style on what you preference kind of thing. Because LeBron is more of a bruiser for sure on how he like tries to dominate inside, trying to get to the hoop and all that. Jordan definitely was a driver as well due to the era, but he also had a really good mid-range and everything. And personally, I don't know, I just kind of liked the way that Jordan would just kind of take over a game. And yeah, he complained, but not as much as LeBron. That's my biggest gripe with LeBron personally. And you cannot say that's not a valid point, because like sometimes he's out there and he looks like a certain word I cannot say on this mic. And if you want to be the greatest of all, that's another thing is like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember ever really seeing or hearing anything of Jordan saying or claiming that he is the greatest of all time. I feel like if you want to be the greatest of all time, you shouldn't be saying it, kind of thing. Like, it's the people that decide that, not you. I don't know. But yeah, again, obviously he's not far behind. Like I said, if he wins a title, I don't know if I really have any other argument between whether or not he could be, if he's number one or number two. So I know there are some people that will never acknowledge it, and that's their thing. But I don't know. I just think that, and you brought up like we need to put the whole 8 straight titles to rest. I'm not saying that he would have won 8 straight. I'm not also saying that he wouldn't, like that he couldn't have done that. And I'm also not saying that he could have done something in those 2 years that completely ruined his career. He could have also won 2 more MVPs or whatever kind of thing.
The thing that I get irritated with some Jordan fans, not all Jordan fans do this, but
which is funny. I'm not a Jordan fan, by the way. I just pick.
But some fans of Jordan who have Jordan number one all the time, they really like to pick and choose what years they're comparing. Yeah. We don't really ever talk about Jordan like pre-1990. All those times he was getting beat up in the playoffs by the Bucks, the Celtics, the Pistons, and that's not really a thing. And we don't really ever talk about his Wizards tenure, which LeBron is the same age as Jordan in that tenure, and LeBron is still averaging 25, 7, and 7, and a 3 seed in the West.
Yeah.
So I think you could argue Jordan's peak was higher, but the longevity aspect of LeBron, I think, is so much greater than any other athlete we've ever seen, maybe other than Tom. But
yeah, don't be hating on Ovechkin.
True.
OV and the boys.
Some OV for the Capitals, but no, that's my last take on that. Just because I could get into an entire hour debate on this, and I
also you talking about longevity. How you not mentioning the greatest athlete of all time? We're talking
Joey
17-time WWE champion John Cena, the greatest of all time, still doing it to this day after having a hair transplant surgery and all that. I'm completely kidding. No, Joey Chestnut would have been a better one, honestly.
You would talk about greatest athletes of all time. Joey's got to be up there for number one. You talk about Joey, Michael Phelps.
Talk about the thing that I think is the sickest thing of all time to watch, but yet I watch it every freaking year because it's so entertaining.
I don't know if you guys have seen this take or this like hypothetical, and this will be the last thing I ramble on about, but it was who wins in a 100-meter dash, Usain Bolt or Joey Chestnut, but both have to eat a hot dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think it'd be closer than people think.
I think Joey's got him. I really do. Because you got to think the average
It's
man
so
runs.
disgusting.
It is, but I think Joey could eat the hot dog in like 2 seconds, and as long as he could run like a 16-second 100-meter, I think he's fine.
We have figured out how to determine the NBA GOAT. Hot dog, 100-yard relay right there.
There we go. That'll do it.
Braun's cooking him.
Braun's got to cook.
Yeah.
Trust.
I don't
That's
know.
my last one.
Maybe Jordan knows how to put down some glissies. You never know.
But Jordan at this point is what, 62?
Yeah, we gotta find a time machine for that one.
Yeah, we gotta put it in 2K or something.
Another big reason, and we can sign off after this. Another big reason why I put Jordan over LeBron, and I know Hunter said you kind of have to put away the impact on the game. I just think that like the impact that Jordan has to be something that is weighed upon in terms of the like looking at his career. And I know that's like the marketing side probably doesn't matter for a lot of people. Maybe it does for me just because that's kind of the industry I work in a little bit. And so that is a big impact for me. 20 years from now, maybe everybody's just like LeBron has his own brand and all that. I know he has a brand now, but like maybe 20 years from now, that's what everybody wants to wear at some point. I know a lot of people have kind of leaned to wearing more Kobe's recently. And so maybe that will phase out at some point. But I think, I don't know, the impact that he had on the game outweighs a lot of things that may be going against him in terms of the argument with LeBron. But again, that's coming from someone that has a marketing advertising type of background. So that's my personal reasons of why I would take him over LeBron. But I know that that doesn't have a complete impact in terms of on-court success, which kind of contradicts a little bit of things that I've said in the past in terms of whether or not Tyrese Halliburton's a superstar or whatever it may be. So that's the weird thing is like you can make arguments for why, and I have before, of why Kobe Bryant should be considered a top 5 player of all time. So if you try really hard, you can convince any players should be relevant in terms of being ranked. It's just when you get two players that are so difficult or so neck and neck with certain things, and like it's crazy how like the things that they outweigh each other on are so drastic. Like LeBron's scoring compared to Jordan's. Jordan's defensive success in awards and accolades versus LeBron's. LeBron's, just pure like dominance of being able to take a team to the NBA Finals. Jordan's success in the NBA Finals. It's one of those where it's like they both negatives. The negatives for each player are outweighed on each side, so it's kind of hard to connect the dots and determine one way or another. But that's why Jordan's my GOAT, but it is like it's 1 and then 1.5. It's not 2 in my opinion. I don't think it's not worth doing that 1 and 2 kind of thing anymore. But any final thoughts before we sign off? We're almost on a 2-hour episode basically, but any final thoughts before we sign off? Final reactions on this? Who's here? I guess this is how we'll end off. Who is one player that is not on this list that you think will be top 50 in 10 years? Or is there not someone? And who would be the first person that's not on this list that would be in this list 10 years from now? And where would they be ranked?
I feel like it's basic to say Wembanyama.
Yeah, I feel like Wemby and Shea are like the easiest ones.
Yeah.
See, I was gonna say I think Shea might be top 50 if depending on how this Thunder thing ends up going.
Shea's probably the safe answer. That Wemby just, I know his health concern was pretty much he's cleared now, but just we've never seen a guy that tall survive a long time in the league. So that's like, while his potential, he could be a top 10 player of all time, I don't know if he has the longevity for it, but we'll see. 10 years from now, 2035? No, that's too far in the future. I don't want to talk about that far in advance.
LaMelo!
Hey, if he's off the Hornets, which he probably is going to in 10
Nah,
years.
he's gonna lead him to a chip. They're gonna win. They've won
Dude,
their
if
first
the
chip now this
Hornets won
summer.
a chip with
They're gonna win a
LaMelo,
second one this next summer. Not in the summer league though.
okay, yeah.
True.
I will. Hey, you know what? We've talked about them a bunch. He won't be top 50, but give me Banchero, low key. If the Magic continue building up the way that they are, I could see him being like not necessarily above top 90, but if they even sneak into a couple NBA Finals appearances, or God forbid win something for once, he's gonna be the guy. I feel like, or Wagner, for being a reason why they won a championship. So
I mean, if he's gonna be the next LeBron, his peak's number 2, I guess. So,
True.
Or number 3, according to some people.
Yeah.
I think I will say that I'm blown away that there was someone that put him at 3. That person deserves to be fired.
We need to hold every sports reporter accountable for their actions when they do these anonymous reviews. We need to hold them accountable. We just do, because I could do this too. I could make some crazy outlandish thing. You guys would have no idea that it was me, and get
Put
paid.
Michael Jordan at 11.
Right, just to rage bait some people, just to get them upset, get someone upset.
Well, when I work for Bleacher Report and you see Kobe Bryant is ranked as high as number 1 and the greatest of all time, you probably know who ended up doing that.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. I think players like, Klay Thompson could have been higher. Bernard King, just borderline out there. I mean, heck, the hatred on my boy Dave Bing being number 99. Like, what the heck?
Wow.
I don't know. We've been on too long. We need to go off. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna sign off for this episode. Hour and 52-minute episode. Probably gonna only be uploaded on YouTube and then our audio podcast, but we'll share the links out obviously to Facebook and Twitter, or X, whatever you call it. Twitter is what it will forever be. But next week, we'll probably do another one of these random episodes. I think we got some teams that have rebranded that we want to talk about a little bit. And maybe we'll hit on some other topics as well. So for Dawson Livingston and Hunter Rose, I'm Brock Bierman. Thank you for listening. If you made it to this far in the podcast, make sure to subscribe, like, share, whatever you can do to help support us. We appreciate it here on the 515 Podcast Network. So for, like I mentioned, Hunter Rose and Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Bierman. We are the Hardwood Convos podcast crew, and we will see you next week.